There was a little company started back in the 1800s, and the name of that company is, it's got a global footprint today. It's called Coca-Cola. And when Coca-Cola first started, Coca-Cola, you'd take syrup and you'd squirt it into a glass and put carbonated water and stir it with a spoon. And as a distributor for Coca-Cola, you were very limited to where you could get a point of distribution because it was very labor intensive to serve a serving of Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola continued to do the research and development, and the distributor for Coca-Cola was charged with not worrying about how they were going to bottle it or pre-mix it or do any of the innovative things that came a little bit later on. Their whole job was to get more points of distribution. And the more points of distribution they could get, the more servings of Coca-Cola they could dispense, and the more money they would make. Well, then all of a sudden somebody came up with the idea, what if we could pre-mix Coca-Cola and put it into a bottle? And so they perfected that. They spent whatever they spent to make that happen, and the distributors' distribution points exploded. Why? Because it didn't take any more labor to distribute a bottle of Coca-Cola. It took less labor. And so now all of a sudden they could get ice from the ice houses, put Coca-Cola in bottles in it, and put it in front of a gas station or in a lot more places than they could before, where it required all that labor to have that serving of Coca-Cola. And their points of distribution exploded. But folks, the distributor for Coca-Cola did not do the research and development to figure out how to get that Coca-Cola into a bottle. They may have said, hey, this is a great idea. Take that, pre-mix that Coca-Cola and put it into a format where it's in a bottle. They may have come up with the idea, but Coca-Cola did the research and development. I get questions every single day. What's the next state? What about this? What about that? Who shot John? I don't care. My job is to get points of distribution. I mean, folks, you're all worried about a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. The reason that the incomes are exploding in this business is you can distinctly understand that the people that understand this is about points of distribution has got nothing to do with electricity or gas. We've got the perfect product, unconsciously purchased and habitually used. Do I have a license with the Public Utility Commission of the state of Texas? No, I'm not in the utilities business. So what happened with Coca-Cola? Coca-Cola went along and somebody came up with mechanical refrigeration, and they came up with the vending machine. And I hate to admit it, but I'm old enough to remember the single glass thing where you could look through it and put your nickel or your dime. I don't remember the nickel, but I do think I remember the dime in my young age. Put your dime in there, open that thing up, and pull that Coca-Cola out. What happened to the distributor's job was to get as many of those Coke machines as dispensed as possible. They didn't worry about how to build the Coke machine. All they had to do is how to learn how to collect the money and teach people about this new device. Well, then the vending machine expanded, and all of a sudden, instead of one glass window, there were 6 buttons on it. And Coca-Cola did the research and development and came up with Coke and Sprite and Diet Sprite and all these different products. And the distributor continued to put out more and more Coke machines. And every time that Coca-Cola went and added a new product, a Sprite or a Coke Zero or whatever, the money that distributor made exploded. Every time Ambit Energy goes and opens up a new state, your income is going to explode if you focus on points of distribution. So now, a company came along with a real innovative idea. And the name of that company was Snapple, and it was a lightly carbonated, fruit-flavored beverage. And they worked 10 years, and they built their distribution independently. And they were an independent company, and they were wildly successful, making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. And Coca-Cola sat back and watched and watched and watched. And they let Snapple educate the marketplace. And they let Snapple do what they did. And then 10 years into it, they decided they were going to come out with a competing product called Fruitopia. And folks, the first day that Fruitopia hit the shelves, because of the points of distribution, all the convenience stores, all the vending machines, worldwide distribution, the first day Fruitopia came out, they sold more Fruitopia than Snapple had the whole previous year after 10 years. That happened because the Coca-Cola distributors understood that if they were going to sell their product, it was all about points of distribution. It had nothing to do about the product. They weren't worried about Snapple. They stayed focused on continuing to launch product after product after product. You see Coca-Cola today, they've got Diet Coke and Cherry Diet Coke and Vanilla Cherry Diet Coke and Vanilla Diet Coke. And if that wasn't enough, they come out with Coke Zero. Do you understand what one more row on that grocer's shelf is worth? Hundreds of millions of dollars. Because they know they have the points of distribution. And Coca-Cola's never gone away from its distributor model. Think about it. If you're a distributor for Coca-Cola because you worked hard and those distributorships are passed down generation after generation after generation. It's very atypical that one's ever sold, maybe in a nasty divorce or there's some circumstances in the ownership that force the sale of one. But why are those distributorships passed down generation, generation, generation? Why did Jerry Thompson and Chris Chambliss put in our policies and procedures that when I pass away, my family can reap the benefits and my kids' kids' kids can reap the benefits off of me going out there and building a distribution network? They did it because they're good Christians and they understood that that was the right thing to do, and most network marketing companies don't do that.